Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Founders Grid, sponsored by Caper.io. Today we have Diego from B37. Diego, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mustafa. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, give me a brief background about yourself, what you've been doing before B37.
Sure. My background is I'm from Mexico originally. I started my career in banking at UBS back in 2010. Then I spent a 7-year stint in management consulting at BCG, Boston Consulting Group. I did my MBA a while ago, 5 years ago, at Kellogg in Northwestern. And finally, at the beginning of last year, I was able to jump into the exciting world of the startups and the VC ecosystem, which was a long desire of mine. So right now, I'm an associate partner at B37 Ventures. And been living in the Bay Area for the past year and really liking it.
Interesting. So, B37, can you elaborate a bit more on this so then we can take the conversation from there?
Sure. So B37 is a San Francisco-based VC fund. We have a nuanced approach to venture capital. So 2/3 of our capital under management comes from 5 multinational corporations headquartered outside the US, mainly Mexico and Spain. And they are quite big. They operate in 34 countries, combined revenues of around $25 billion and north of 200,000 employees. So they have an interesting asset base. And what we are is we are their eyes and ears in Silicon Valley and US native tech, mainly for a twofold mission. First, they don't necessarily have the access and adoption to the type of technology in their native markets. That's A. And B, they don't necessarily have a consistent way to digest startups, right? And that's where we come into play. And for the other part of the equation, for entrepreneurs and startups that want to scale and grow internationally quicker through our network, we go in very hand in hand to navigate them through the complex organizational structures of international multinationals that it's not necessarily trivial how to land a global contract that could represent tens of millions of dollars. So that's where we probably devote 80% of our time working with entrepreneurs. So we actively seek to co-invest with the top 50 tier 1 VCs and have really strong relationships that we've nurturing the past couple of years.
Interesting. So, unfortunate times because of COVID 2019, and multiple VCs are rethinking their investment thesis, and many are even have told their startup companies that, increase your runways to 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, or things like those where we keep on hearing news, right? So how do you perceive the post-COVID world would look like? How do you think things will be like?
I mean, it's definitely a sea of uncertainty right now. I guess it's a TBD, but in the sense of how we see it, we have a diverse multiplicity of use cases and portfolio companies within our portfolio that basically stray from synthetic biology, enterprise SaaS, automation, but mainly it's B2B. And our portfolio in that sense is geared towards, thinking in that 2020 is going to be probably not a year in which the type of stellar growth that we're projecting in terms of top line growth will materialize. And that's why your comment around trying to lengthen the runway is totally on point. However, I think the world would look like in probably 12-month time, startups will be the startups that do come out in a winning position. I think they have a nimbler operation, probably a more efficient one, and they will be better prepared to tackle a quote unquote return to normal. So in that sense, we're pretty excited because you've heard VC saying, well, this is the times where they might double down in winners and not necessarily take huge risks and new checks or technologies that convey a larger degree of uncertainty and unproven markets, unproved product market fit, and so on. So this has to do a lot of portfolio construction and how you perceive the world right now and moving into the future. The way we see it right now is we're excited to write new checks and probably have still room to do that. I would say 20 to 30% of our AUM right now. But we are very happy with our reserves and doubling down in those companies that will capitalize on the fact that they will become operationally stronger given the current environment.
So remote work, it has been on the rise for the past 2 years, and certainly COVID has acted as a catalyst for it. So how are your portfolio companies managing it? And what do you see that going forward? Will it stick around, or will the world go back to normal?
Yeah, I would say it depends on the vertical and the strongest use case for the technology, right? I was mentioning that the portfolio is broken down into enterprise SaaS, automation, and synthetic biology. So our portfolio companies that mainly deploy enterprise SaaS, well, those actually have been doing quite well. Probably their land and expand model into how they grow new logos and trying to actively seek new customers this year. That's probably changed a little bit, but the way they will now penetrate the existing customers, I think that's going to be mainly remote. And they've been doing that very successfully. And I think people will realize that things haven't broken and you can actually have a very successful sales force that operates more than half remotely, and probably for landing new enterprise accounts, maybe when things go back to normal, live meetings will become more probably more similar to what we used to see before, but a lot of the interaction is going to shift to virtual, in my opinion. So that's one thing. The other part is the ones that do require physical deployments, for example, automation and robots. That's harder to navigate, right? Because yes, the technology up to a certain extent, you can do the due diligence remotely, and yes, you can do certain degree of the way you would like to interact with a startup up to a certain degree, but then you have to see the things in action, the robots in action, how they, in our case, how they interact with our existing LP base, our large manufacturing plants worldwide, and that's where it gets a little bit trickier. But again, I think people are expecting not the same degree of physical interaction needed. I would say more of a as needed basis. And I think that will make the deploying teams actually more effective and more targeted.
Last question, Diego. Any three pieces of advice would you like to give out to young entrepreneurs who are just starting out in the COVID world and are looking to raise, and how to go about it, or what industries to focus on?
Yeah, I would say take advantage of the fact that people have been talking about remote work probably the past few years, and there has been a shift towards decentralization in some part of the tech world. And this has just been a catalyzer to the shift in paradigm, right? And between the generational teams across not only startups, but also legacy corporations, you have baby boomers, millennials, and now the Gen Z coming into the workforce. now you have this new paradigm shift given by the pandemic, I would say worldwide, in which, again, people realize that nothing broke. Your outperformers will keep on delivering, and they've showcased they deliver even throughout not being physically there. And I would say that will present an opportunity for self-selection, and the people that show that being nimble, being resourceful, it's way more important than following sort of like the corporate path of an established corporation, right? And so for people and founders looking to create an opportunity after COVID, I would say capitalize on this. People are going to lower the barriers, be more open to having interactions that are not necessarily in your city, that are not necessarily in your zip code. And since people realize that this is something achievable and it's not something for the long tail of exceptional startups that can be run decentralized, I think people should jump into the opportunity to create a more geographically diverse workforce and probably make some cost arbitrage in not only in labor costs, but talent as well, and even an investor-based approach. So yeah, I think there's moving pieces and moving variables for the same outcome of how to capitalize on the opportunity that the crisis presented. So.
Interesting. Diego, thank you so much for being on the show. It was great having you, but my marketing team tells me I have to keep it within 10 minutes. But it was great having you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mustafa. Pleasure talking to you.